Let's face it, the idea of jumping into prepping can be overwhelming, especially with the way that it is often presented by would-be professionals who make it seem as if you need to be a millionaire in order to do it successfully. Fortunately, however, this isn't necessarily true, and there are some basic things that you can do to begin to prep right now, or even to improve your situation if you are already a prepper. Basically, simple is better, so keep it simple. Now, before we get going, keep in mind that this is not an exhaustive list because, simply put, everyone's situation is going to be different, and ultimately, you need to do what is best for you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, in no particular order. Number 1, start building on that pantry. This is very likely one of the easiest things you can do. Every time you go out shopping, pick up a little something extra to store away for an emergency. Pick up foods that are inexpensive and have a long shelf life, such as pasta, rice, or beans, and make sure these are items that you are actually going to eat and keep them in rotation. Now, these are not the only foods you can get, but make sure you are actually eating the foods that you prep with. There's no point in storing food you're not going to eat. And again, rotation is vitally important. And as a side note, I would also be storing and rotating water as part of my pantry prep. Number 2, physical fitness. This is something that everyone knows how important it is, and for the most part knows what needs to be done, but few rarely ever actually do it. Barring having an actual illness or infirmity that prevents you from being active, there's really no legitimate excuse for neglecting regular exercise. Most just choose to be unfit, something they will eventually regret if anything ever goes down that requires any sort of physical strain on the body. Regular cardio and strength training is essential for health and well-being, regardless of whether you prep or not. So stop making up excuses and get moving. Number 3, build a bag. Everyone in your family should have at least one emergency bag. Typically, I would recommend a bug-out bag and a get-home bag that would be stored in your vehicle. What goes into these bags is entirely up to you, as your requirements may be very different from anyone else. If you need inspiration, there are more videos on suggestions than I can count. However, the advice I would give you would be to keep it simple, keep it light, and don't get sucked into the idea of needing really expensive gear for the bag to be successful. Number 4, run drills. This involves one of the hardest aspects of prepping, and that is getting the family on board. Often, there is a lot of resistance from children, and especially from spouses. However, running regular emergency drills is a way to help break them in, since drills should be run regardless of whether a family preps or not. It's just good common sense. Fire drills, blackout drills for power failures, flood or hurricane drills for frequently affected areas, and so on. Even drills for lost or missing children or home invasion can be experimented with. Number 5, gardening. Granted, most preppers are actually city dwellers and likely won't have much opportunity in this area, but gardening is not so simple as it seems and is vital to long-term survival. And it's important to learn how to do this now, because one does not simply throw seeds on the ground and get a miracle. Gardening is a skill and requires practice, so get started on it now if you can. Even something simple in the yard around your home. And if you live in the city, there's nothing to prevent you growing something in a pot in your apartment, just for the experience. Or perhaps there's even a community gardening project in your area that you can get involved with so you can at least learn some of the skills. Number 6, foraging. If anything major ever goes down, you may find yourself on the run, and there's only so much you can carry with you. When the food runs out, starving people will very quickly hunt and fish every local spot into oblivion, and that doesn't leave many options. However, if you have experience with foraging, you can pick edible plants as you go. I recommend picking up an edible wild plant guide and actually experimenting with it. Use that guide to locate and actually prepare and eat some of these plants so you can get used to it and know what to expect if you had to live off wild plants for sustenance. And just a disclaimer, don't eat anything from the wild that you're not 100% sure of what it is and that it hasn't been contaminated somehow by pesticides or something else. Number 7, water collection. This is something that is vital for everyone to learn about. Water is life, literally. Most people think water is something that comes out of the tap or from a bottle. But when there are no more bottles and the tap is dry, then you're on your own. You will need to know how to procure water naturally and how to treat it to make it safe to drink and cook with. Most people who prep have some idea of the basics, but have never actually experimented with any of them, so they really don't know what to expect. This is another example of where experience is better than book knowledge. Number 8, learn to defend yourself. And I don't just mean with weapons. Although weapons training is important, you should be able to at least moderately defend yourself hand to hand as well. And more importantly, have the fortitude to react with force if and when necessary. If you're one of those people who thinks you can reason your way out of a situation, then you are in for one hell of a shock when you see firsthand how uncivilized and violent people can be when they are desperate. Never underestimate the vileness of mankind and the evil it is capable of. Number 9, know your surroundings. Most people nowadays have no idea what's around the corner or what's on the next street over, let alone a concept of the layout of their own neighborhood or any of the surrounding areas. Get to know these places. Don't drive, walk around. You'll pick up on landmarks better that way. Look for shortcuts. Find out where local water sources may be. How close is the nearest public park? Does it connect to a trail? Will that trail take me out of town or even out of state if necessary? Do you own any maps that you can use to navigate? How many different types of maps do you have? Street maps, subway maps, maps of local parks and trails? Most people don't have a map at all anymore because they figure, what's the point? GPS will take care of it. But when that GPS isn't working, what will you do? And number 10, training. This item really kind of ties all the others together because all of it is useless if you don't train regularly. You need to practice. You need to gain experience. And as I've said before, you are your own best prep. All the gear and supplies in the world won't do you any good if you can't use them. And if you are well trained enough, you can get by if you're caught without any of your equipment. Make sure you regularly engage in training and be as well-rounded as possible. And you just knew I had one more for you, didn't you? Call it number 11 if you will. Have a plan. Always plan ahead. Set goals for yourself and work towards achieving them. Practice those drills and map out what works best and make sure everyone involved knows their part. Make a list and check it twice. Basically, don't get caught with your pants down when you know what hits the fan. So I hope you found this list helpful. If you have any other suggestions, feel free to post them in the comments section down below. Please do give the video a thumbs up, easiest way to show your appreciation. Share it if you can and subscribe if you are new. If you would like to help the channel out, there are links for that down below. Every little bit helps and I sure do appreciate it. And if that's it, then what more can I say but stay frosty, folks, and thanks for watching.